Another area that the governor really, I think, gets singular attention is when you have an emergency. Everyone sort of looks to the executive for leadership.
Considering the combination of conditions created during the weekend storm.
You can tell businesses, you got to close. You can tell the New Jersey Turnpike, no more cars until this emergency is over. You can do whatever you want to do. You have really dictatorial powers over people for the state of that emergency. And I don't think anybody's ever fully defined what an emergency is and how far those powers could be stretched.
Tom Kean also sought to preserve land through a statewide policy, while New Jersey was in the midst of a development boom. His proposed bill to protect undeveloped wetlands immediately encountered resistance in Trenton.
The governor said too much of the wetlands had been lost to the bulldozer since he first spotlighted the issue 4 years ago.
For whatever reason, well-organized interests and groups seem to be able to paralyze the legislative process.
The builders and the lawyers attached are very, very powerful people. And I got it through one house, and then they just blocked it in the other house. And I couldn't get it through, and because of this boom the state was having, we were losing wetlands every day.
He knew that he was not going to be able to get this out of the legislature, and that the executive order was really the only way to go.
So I did something, almost legislative violence. What I did is say, I've got emergency powers when there is an emergency. And I said, this is an emergency, and there's going to be no more building in the state until we have a regulation for building in the wetlands. And I stopped all building, you can imagine.
On protection of the wetlands, the governor took the bold step of issuing an executive order.
The governor himself called the action dramatic. Even some supporters labeled it drastic. But the wetlands are close to Kean's heart. So close that he jumped the gun on the legislature to block wetlands development for the next year and a half.
It was sort of like one of those all-in kind of things. We're going to push all our chips into the middle of the table and we're going to do this. And, and we'll see what the legislature does in response, if anything.
The builders immediately went to the Supreme Court and asked for an injunction, which I knew they would. And I didn't know whether I'd gone too far or not. I really didn't, because that's really stretching the powers. And the court refused to give an injunction. They said, we'll take it to trial. But the builders couldn't wait. Time is money for a builder. And they came into my office and said, you win. How fast can we get the bill through? The bill was in my desk in 2 days. And I signed it.
Has put his stamp of approval on the measure and promises to remove his controversial moratorium on new development once he signs the bill. Under the legislation, development would be prohibited.
But that was a case of using, maybe even stretching the emergency powers. It's important and it's necessary when the state's in real trouble, but some governor could someday abuse it because it is so powerful, and we got to keep an eye on that.